started. I just wanted to first thank you all for showing up. And we were trying to get a great head count, and we always prepare for extra, and it's just great to see all you come out. All of you. That's all of you. And but first off, I really want to introduce to you a good friend of mine and a fellow minister to the prisons. And he's going to entertain you, and him and I might do a song together. And we just want y'all to have a good time. This is Kenny Munns.
Thank you. I wonder if you could push your chair back and stand up with me for a second. That'll give you a chance to stretch your legs a little bit. Because I want you to clap and sing along with me. Medley that I want to do. We'll start with something like this. Well, would you be free from your burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you already know the victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. Oh, there is power, wonder working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Well, are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments like the southern white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Some that morning when the rock and soul, my way, the two alone on God's list shore. Harley and I met about a year ago, and we do prison ministry, which is a common thing. I have a ministry myself, of course, Harley's ministry, and we have the musical background, and so similar friends. So we got together, and he invited me to come over here and be a part of this tonight. Thank you, Harley. I've been doing prison ministry since 1998. And I'll never forget the first time that I even heard about prison ministry. I got a call from a fellow by the name of Murphy, Sir, Jack Murphy, who just recently passed away. But Murphy invited me to go into a prison in California, near El Centro. It's called California. He said, "Hey, we heard you're a good singer, and we want you to go into prison with us." Huh? And he says, "Yeah." He says, we'll pay you $500 and feed you, put you up in a motel. And I said, "What time do you want me there?" We went out onto this prison yard and we're standing on this tree with a microphone like this. All these inmates are gathered around in their orange jumpsuits. There's several hundred of them. I'm standing back there scared out of my mind. And Murphy comes back to me and he says, "What are you going to sing?" I said, "Amazing Grace." He said, "You'll run off." He said, "You entertain. I'll preach to them when you're done." I said, "I'll bring the word." He said, "But you're here to get them going, get them entertained." He said, "You wouldn't know any Johnny Cash, did you?" I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "Well, they love Johnny Cash." I said, "All right." So he goes up there and he introduces me, and I stepped up to the mic. It's the first song I ever did in prison. Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. I hear the train come rolling around the bend. I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when, but I'm stuck close to prison and time keeps dragging on. But well, that train keeps rolling on down to San Antonio. Well, when I was just a baby, my mama told me, "Son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns." But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. Now when I hear the whistle blow, I get my head and cry. Well, they like that Johnny Cash that's first screaming. Yeah. All of a sudden, one of them yells out, "Hey, wait on me, Willie!" Cowboys ain't easy to love, hard to hold. They'd rather give you a song than diamonds gold. On smart, but really wild. He's not here today. But you know, we stand him, he won't die young. Your mama just highway. On the trains roll up the big cow. Don't let them big guitars rock and roll drums. Make them be doctors and lawyers and so. Mama, don't let your babies roll up the big cow. They'll never stay home and they're always alone. Even someone they love. Well, they gave me such a rousing ovation. I thought I can do this. This is no problem at all. Where do y'all want me to go next? So they took me down to this pavilion, basketball pavilion. There were some bleachers, and they had about 150 guys sitting on these bleachers. And I'm really confident this time. I'm walking up there, guys introduced me in Spanish. I asked him, they're all clapping and everything. I said, "Do they speak English?" He said, "No." Some of them speak a little bit. He said, "But they like whatever you do, don't worry about it." I said, "I don't know any songs in Spanish." And about that time, one of the little Latino guys, he yelled out, "Freddie Bender!" I knew a Freddie Bender song. Okay. Everywhere happy midnight you move it. It's your happiness that matters more.
before the knees hit rock.
Oh, they just went berserk. Man, I thought they were doing good. Then I remember the next verse was in Spanish. And I didn't know it. We're all waiting for that verse. Punching each other in the side. I just made something up.
Intriguito. Tostada. Enchilada. Hot tamale. Frijoles. Nacho cheese. Tortilla. Taco Bell. Jalapenos. Hot as
I'm glad to get out of there. Had a good time. You know, I was in a band called Rush Harbor, and this was way back in the 70s. And we actually won 2 Academy of Country Music Awards in 1975. Vocal Group of the Year, Touring Band of the Year. And we recorded for Capitol Records. We worked with the Golden Nugget Casino in Las Vegas. You know, we played the Grand Ole Opry and all these things, but the first time we played on the Opry was with Johnny Cash at the Grand Ole Gospel Hour. And so later on, he would invite us to do a tour with him. We did a 5-day tour with Johnny, opening for his shows in California. There's five concerts that he did. Because he was in between, you know, he had just lost the over his voice. And he needed an opening act for that tour, and so he invited us. And so during that tour, I remember standing backstage, or off to the side of the stage, after we did our thing, watching Johnny perform. Wow, there was one song in particular that really got me. He'd sing, "Ghost riders in the sky." Oh, I love that song. Well, I learned a different version of that song. I'll sing it for you. Well, a chicken farmer took a walk out on his farm one day. He paused beside the coop as he went along his way. When all that once a rock made him in the eye, it was a sight he dreaded. Ghost chickens in the sky. Would you let me pay for this? Ghost chickens in the sky. Help me out, sing that with me one time. Ghost chickens in the sky. Thank you. He'd been a chicken farmer since he was 24. Working for the Colonel for 30 years or more. Killing all the chickens and sending them to fry. didn't have no feathers 'cause these chickens all were dead. They picked that farmer up and he died by the claw. They cooked him extra crispy and ate him with coleslaw. You're still here. Oh, that's fun. The guys in prison love that song. They all seem to get a kick out of it. You know, Harley wanted me to do a song. He wanted to play the part with me on it. I thought, wow, yes, let's do it. You know, so I'm going to ask him to come up and write down. You join me?
Make sure I'm in tune a little hard, Y'all go ahead and start listening to this too.
Well, I guess it's close. I'm just a fool, wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world below. There is no sickness, no toil or danger in that bright land to which I go. I go there to see my father and all my loved ones who've gone on. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. Dark cloud will get around me. I know my way is hard and steep, but do you feel the rise before me? When God's redeemed their vigilance keep. I'm going there to see my mother. She said she'd meet me when I come. So I'm just going over this guy played with some of the greatest bands, and here I am on stage with him. I thought, wow, did somebody get a picture of that? Okay, I'll pay you for it. No. My testimony, the reason I go to prison is because for years I did drugs. For years I smoked marijuana, I snorted cocaine, I popped pills, I drank a lot of tequila, and a lot of beer. And it just nearly destroyed my life. As a matter of fact, the reason I'm not in that band, I got kicked out of that band because of that very reason. Lost the Capitol Records recording contract and everything. And for years I struggled, to make it on my own. Until one day, driving down the freeway in Los Angeles, I had an encounter with God. I looked around at all of the things in my car. I had 2 cigarettes lit up. Sometimes I'd have 3 at one time because I was so messed up. I had tried to snort some cocaine while the windows were down and 65 miles an hour and had powder all over my face. And I smelled marijuana. I looked down at my cigarettes and set fire to all the roaches in my ashtray. The roaches are little what's left of the joint that you put on the clip and smoke. They were falling out onto the floor on top of all the beer bottles that I had thrown, empty beer bottles on the floor. And that was my life. And I looked up in the rearview mirror and I saw tears. I saw tear tracks down that powder on my face. Pulled off the freeway and cried and cried and cried and asked God for help. When I cleared my face and when I began to crying stop, I realized where I was going. I went straight down the freeway just a few miles and met a man who was the executive director of the largest rehab facility in the county of Los Angeles. And I had met him and was acquainted with him. When I got out of my car and he saw the condition I was in, he just shook his head and I said, I need help. Three days later, on February the 7th, 1990, I walked into Acton Rehab Center in California. And I've been sober ever since. That's over 30 years. I praise God, one day at a time. So, and one of the hardest things for me to do is to forgive myself. I ask God to forgive me, man, and He does. He does forgive us, but sometimes it takes us a while to forgive ourselves. And for years I struggled with, I didn't think God loved me because of the people I had hurt. I abandoned my own son when he was 2 years old. He's 44 today. We're fortunate to have a relationship with him. I had no relationship with my grandson until this summer. I get a call from his mother saying he needs somebody to love him. And I said, well, send him to me. So one of the good things that came out of this pandemic was I had time to spend with my grandson. He came to Florida to stay with me for 3 months. He was clean when he left. He didn't even have a driver's license at age 19. And when he left, he had a driver's license. He had a bank account, a debit card, and he had a whole new outlook. And so now I have a relationship with my grandson, which I didn't have. So the Lord works that way. Sean, if you don't mind me mentioning this, Sean came to stay with me for 30 days. He had come to my church. I was pastor of Honey Lake Church in Greenville, Florida, for 5 years. And Sean came there and he gave a testimony. And one of the things he said in his testimony was that he hadn't been in touch with his son. That was one of his regrets. Little did we know that years later, Sean and I would look up again. We didn't see each other until this year after that happened. That was years ago. I went to Oklahoma to attend the funeral of my sister this last week. Sean went with me. And on the way up, he said, my son lives in Oklahoma. I said, oh, yeah? He said, yeah. We went to see his son. God gives Sean has a new look on life today because he's got a relationship with his son. And I have a relationship with my grandson. And God is good. close with this because I don't want to take too much time. But I took that attitude of, well, I don't know if God loves me, into a jail in California. This was the South Central Los Angeles. And there's not a whole lot of country music fans in South Central Los Angeles, and especially in the jails. And, I didn't think there was too many Merle Haggard fans and so. But I go in with the prison ministry, and I'm walking down, and there's this section where there's 3 pods. And 2 of the pods were quiet, nothing going on, they were asleep. The pod to my left, as I walked into that area where the security was, were all up. And they were pounding on their tables when they saw me, because they knew entertainment was coming. And they started pounding on the tables. Now there were blacks and whites and Asians and Hispanics. And way in the back, I didn't know what they were till later, were 3 Samoans. Big, huge native guys. And they're pounding on their tables. Music, music, music. And I'm looking in there, and I looked at that officer and said, am I going in there? He said, I said, are you going with me? I said, all right, I'm ready. So he opens the door, and as soon as I stepped in, 2 guys picked me up and set me up on a table. That scared me. I didn't know what they were going to do with me, but they set me up on a table and they started screaming out songs. Snoop Doggy Dogg! Hip hop! Way in the back, you know. Hotel California! One little Latino guy. They're all screaming out songs, and I'm praying. I'm saying, Lord, what do you want me to sing to these guys? Big small ones in the back were looking at me. One of them looked like they wanted to boil me in a pot. Just the way he's looking at me. And I'm praying and I said, God, what do you want me to do? So the Lord spoke to me and he says, just tell them I love them. I said, all right. What song do you want to do? And I'm thinking all this while they're yelling song. And he tells me the song. And I go, oh no, Lord, not that song. Lord, that's a song I sang when I was a little kid in Sunday school. He says, well, these are my kids. Take them to Sunday school. So I said, all right, Lord, here goes. And I sang out, Jesus loves me, this I know. For the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. And all of a sudden I felt the power of the Holy Spirit. They are weak, but he is strong. Well, you could have heard a pin drop. The guys were looking at me with it. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. I had my eyes closed, so I was prayed over. But when I did, first one I saw was that big old Samoan back. And he was, yeah. The rest of the guys looked at him and, yeah. swaying back and forth, singing, "Yes, Jesus loves me." Then all of a sudden, the Lord asked me a question. He said, "You hear what you're singing?" He said, "Do you believe I love you?" Right there in that jail, all of a sudden, the light went on. Yes. Okay, God, I get it. You love me. I forgive myself. Okay, I'll do it. And a lot of guys came to know the Lord that day, because it didn't matter what I did after that. God had them. He had them booked. 2 of those Samoans came to know Christ that day. That was awesome. I want you to sing it with me, okay? Let's do it one time. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. And I want you to know that Harley here is a great ministry. Support him if you can. Okay? Give what you can, because this man is changing lives. God's using him to change lives. Prisons. What a talent. Good man. Can play that harp. If I could play guitar as well as he can play harp, I'd be famous. No. I'd be better. One more time. Yes, Jesus loves me. Oh, the Bible tells me so. Well, now you've met King. I'm getting ready to bring my beautiful wife up here, and she's going to be sharing her testimony. And just want y'all to listen. I don't think y'all got to hear her, so we're all excited about it. Go ahead and come up here.
Hello. Okay. As I look at the crowd tonight, I think about, first of all, how grateful I am that you're here. I don't know how people make it who do not have a family of God. If you've ever been to a funeral for somebody who wasn't a child of the King, there are very few people other than family, and there's so much more sadness than what we would see at a funeral for somebody that we know is a child of the King. People get by without God, but that's all they do. Get by. They don't have the joy of the fellowship and the communion that we do. Let's talk about prison ministry. Never on my top 10 list of things I wanted to do. I came from a small rural town in Tennessee where there were no public hangings, but that was the attitude when I was growing up. You know, if you break the law, hang them high. So I'm a Tennessee farm girl and pretty proud of it. I know you can't hear that in my voice or anything, but we'll go from there. How I got started in prison ministry. I was attending a real small Baptist church just outside Nashville at the time, and my pastor got a call to to go to the Tennessee Prison for Women and do a Sunday night service because one of the scheduled pastors had canceled. And he asked me if I could go and do some music. And I could sing at that time, so I said, yeah, I'll do that. And I never had fear about it. I was kind of shocked about that because for so many years I've lived under the bondage of fear. And to be able to walk into a prison and hear the clanging of the doors and not be afraid, I knew I was supposed to be there. I knew I was supposed to be there. So we're standing up front and the girls start filing in. And I'll never forget, I had on navy blue dress slacks and I had on a red turtleneck. And when they started coming in, they all have Tennessee Prison for Women, Tennessee Department of Corrections, in a white stripe on their blue jeans, and they had blue chambray shirts. And one of the first girls in looked at me and said, well, apparently you didn't get the dress code memo. And I'm like, okay, the ice is broken. I'm good. I am good. I knew I would go back, but I didn't know how or when. And probably a few months after that, I got a call from the volunteer chaplain out there who later became my mentor. And to this day, I love her, and so many lives have been changed because of her. She reached out and asked me if I would come on Friday nights and visit with a girl who had both AIDS and cancer. And I told her I would. So my Friday nights were spent at the prison for a long, long time. Then when I retired in 1998, she called me and asked me if I would come for a day and visit with some of the special needs inmates. And I did that. They called them one-on-one visits at that time, so that's what I did. So for the next 17 to 18 years, I did. For the next 17 to 18 years, I taught classes there. I mentored. It was such a period of growth for me. And one of the things that I got to do for many years was teach classes there. I taught classes like making peace with your past, domestic violence. One of the things I taught was shelter from the storm. And that was at that time a Bible-based sexual abuse recovery group. And that one had my name written all over it. I taught it. It was a 12 to 16 week class. And I taught that for almost 5 years. Having been through that and knowing about that personally, what I've learned is that every time I tell my story, it comes out a little different. I've listened to Harley over and over in these prisons give his testimony. And every time he tells his, it comes out a little different. And what we think about that is that God tailors what we say for somebody in that audience. Somebody needs to hear a particular thing about us. So we moved down here 2012, and we began to minister in the Florida prison system. And it's been wonderful, 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 but it also has been a bit of a challenge for us because I knew the Tennessee system like the back of my hand. I've been on that compound so long, they let me go anywhere I wanted to. And I was sent to medical a lot of times to minister to women there. And we didn't really know how to get started down here. And I said to Harley, why don't we just take a chance and make an appointment with the chaplain of chaplains who's in Tallahassee, the director of the chaplaincy. So we did. And he had forgotten to write our name down on his calendar, but he saw us anyway. And what he did, and this is the thing that started us here, and God was so all over it. It's not something we could accomplish by ourselves. He said, send me your information and I'll send it out. So we had a special package that we sent to chaplains that told them who we were and what our history was and what we do. And he sent that to all prisons in the state of Florida. So in our infinite wisdom, we put a dot on Jacksonville and said, okay, for financial reasons, we'll go only 2 hours away from this. And the first call we got was in the sugarcane fields in South Florida. South Bay Correctional Institute. Literally, there's a Domino sugar factory down the road. So, I actually, when we first came here to this church, I got to share my story at Celebrate Recovery. And I've noticed over the years, and I'm not a seer, I'm not miraculous in any way, but when I share the entire story, I can tell by the looks of the people whether they've been wrapped in or not. Their tears on their faces and their heads are dropped in shame. And it's just, it's been a beautiful thing for me to get to do what I do and to grow through it and to move past some of my own pain. One of the things that I do here in Florida, and Bill Dyer, who's on our board, got me into part of it, is sort of working in the restorative justice field. He was at that time teaching the Bridges to Life class in several prisons, and I got to go and do a victim impact presentation to those men, and that was a beautiful thing for me. One of the other things I did in the prison in Tennessee was chapel intake. Now, when the women come in there, they go through the big intake process in another area. But we did an intake there, and it was to help us, if you go to church, what denomination are you? Who is your pastor? Should we need to call him? And I never quite knew when I first started that how to ask the God question. And I figured, you can't lean in and go, are you saved? Do you believe in God? I mean, you can't do that because you shut them down when they don't understand what you're talking about. So I came to, so where are you with God? And you wouldn't believe some of the answers I got. I mean, I had women in there who'd been in churches all their lives. I had women in there who had never set foot in one, and everything between. One of the answers that I got several times, and I didn't know what to do with it except write it on the sheet of paper, let the chaplain worry about it, was, I'm good, we go to church on Easter and Christmas. And that was the extent. You don't have any clue how many people have no idea about God. They've heard people talk about Him, but they certainly don't have a personal relationship with Him. I say all that to say this, and this is what I want you to hear about that particular thing. The fields are white unto harvest. And God gave us the Great Commission in Matthew 28:18-20. Go ye therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them all things I have taught you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So to be able to understand that there are people out there that need to know who Jesus is. We kind of, in a church, if we're not careful, we lead a real sheltered life. We go to church with these people, we have dinner with them, we have Sunday school meetings with them, and that's pretty much our circle of friends. But you go to some of these, Harley plays in clubs sometimes, and he has led people to the Lord there, and I'm not the least bit ashamed of any of that. But there are people, I have a friend who calls them the walking dead, because they're kind of lost in this world, and in some ways forgotten. So I say that to you to know, or to tell you, go get them. Go ye therefore. This is sort of a personal, interesting fact. Prison ministry is actually what brought Harley and I together. We were both attending the same church at the time. We were both in the single, again, Sunday school class. We had a good time there. And one of the Sundays we were there, they all went out to lunch after church. And during the course of that church service that morning, Harley was sitting on this end of that pew, and I'm sitting on this end of that pew. And at the end of the service, the pastor asked us to reach across the aisle and take hands all over the church. So that's what we did. And then the single Sunday school class went to lunch after church that day. And when we walked out of there that day, I walked out first and Harley walked out behind me. We had been sitting back to back at two different tables, and he had heard me talking about prison ministry. And as he walked up to me, listen to this, guys and gals, he said to me, "So how long have you been divorced?" And in my best Tennessee voice, I said, "Which time?" So this is number 3 for both of us, if you're counting. But we started dating, and within 6 months, we were married. And tomorrow we celebrate our 22nd wedding anniversary. It's been a beautiful ride to be with a godly man who loves God more than he loves me, and to watch him with these inmates and to see them, because he's been where they've been, and they can identify with him. And I'm so proud of him every time I get to sit under his teaching. It's that much more that I get to learn. And I want to share a couple stories with you about some inmates that have touched my heart. When we first came here, we traveled with a large prison ministry out of South Florida called the Shooting Stars Prison Tour. And we went to a youth facility in Ocala. And some of them really weren't interested in being there. There was one young man, and if you happen to see the young people on these pictures back here, he had on black glasses, horn-rimmed glasses. And he was 17 at the time. And when he turned 18, he went to a maximum security prison for 23 years. Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. A young woman that I mentored for 4 years in the Tennessee Prison for Women had set 4 nursing home fires. Now that's not something, I mean, these people are old and they're sick and they can't help themselves. And the mental health director there gave me a method to kind of walk her through what had happened to her, and or to why she did what she did, because that, unacceptable is putting it mildly. It's not like you went out and got into somebody that could defend themselves. And when it was all said and done months later, every man whose bed she had set on fire was the same body shape and type as her grandfather who had been molested her. So, and I'm not making excuses for her, don't hear me saying that, but it's a mental health issue. I take medication every day to try to be as normal as I can. And I don't make any apologies for that. I've had people chastise me about it, and I let a preacher shame me into getting off my medicine. Worst, took me forever to get my head back on. The last one I want to tell you about is Ronnie. Ronnie is our Miami gangster. We have been mentoring him, or we're spiritual advisors to him for 3 years now? And he's small-framed. He looks like everybody's sweet grandfather. He is in his 54th year in prison, and he's 75 years old. He went in at age 20, and he was one of Miami's biggest dope dealers, biggest. And he did 35 years at Leavenworth Prison, federal prison in Kansas, for habitual criminal importation. And I need to, okay, keep going. Okay, I asked him, he said to us one time, he laughed and reared back in his chair, and he said, well, it's not like I've been locked up all my life. I escaped one time and got to stay out 2 years. So a couple months later, I said, Ronnie, I want to ask you something. and you can tell it's not my business if you want to, but how'd you get out of here? Well, he'd gotten out in a garbage truck, and his girlfriend was supposed to pick him up. So she told him she would be driving a red Torino, and he had been locked up so long he did not know what a red Torino was. So they never got connected, and he walked from Rayford back to Jacksonville. But how he handled the garbage truck was when that thing that crushes the garbage comes down, he'd crawl on top of it. And then when it went back up, he'd crawl back down to the garbage. And I'm like, okay. You know, I don't like garbage anyway, but, you know, he was willing to get in it and lay in it to get out of there. But he's a precious man. He's got saved, he got baptized in 1985. And he's doing life now at Union Correctional Institute on 2 first-degree murder charges. It was part of a drug deal gone bad. He didn't do the shooting, but he was there and part of the plan. So I could stand here the rest of the night and tell you stories, some of which you probably might not even believe. But let me just close with this. Every one of us, every one of our children, every one of our grandchildren is one bad decision away from becoming part of the 100,000 in Florida that are incarcerated. I mean, you know, one time texting while you're driving and you hit somebody head on and you're up for vehicular manslaughter. I mean, it can happen to anybody. And if I go back to that first night I went to the prison with my pastor, when these girls started coming in, one of them came in, beautiful, beautiful blonde. And she sat down about midway back, and she's the one that made the comment about I didn't get the memo about the dress code. But she looked familiar to me. I looked at her and really thought no more about it. And I later realized she had graduated from a Christian high school with my son. She was in his graduating class. Her parents, pillars of the Nazarene Church there in Nashville, and she was a teacher and had had an affair with one of her underage students and spent lots of years in prison. She's out now and doing incredibly well, but it can happen to anybody, I'm just telling you. And I want you to realize that, and I want you to keep your kids and your grandkids in the Word, and anytime you get a chance, tell somebody about Jesus. I mean, yes, he loves us, but just, I'm so grateful that we get to do this and grateful for your support as we do it, but it has been really a life-changing experience for me. I don't take much for granted anymore, and I'm so grateful to have friends and Christian family that I can call on, and friends who will call me out when I need to be called out. And we're just so grateful that you're here tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Well, I was going to play the song, but really with the time, I'm not going to. I appreciate it though, and y'all heard me play. Y'all get to hear me on Sundays. And so, I just want to share some stuff with you. 1 Peter 4:10, each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in its various forms. See, that's our verse, because that's what it's all about. You know, I'm blessed, I can play harmonica, and people love it, and from that I get to share all the stuff I want to share. But one of the things that I had made a decision that was so important when I was incarcerated was that I'm never going back. Ever. For no reason whatsoever, you know. And so I had to Sierra Leone in Liberia. And so I come back and the church, they collected the money, and I went and took a special 10 days of classes. I had to learn about their culture. I had to learn what to say and what not to say. Because it just so happens where I was going, you say the wrong thing, they could slit your throat and it didn't matter. They wouldn't be charged with nothing. You just said the wrong thing, and that's how it worked there. So, anyway, so here I am all geared up to go, and I find myself leaving Augusta, Georgia, going to the airport to get on the plane with everybody. But I didn't have a visa. Now that was supposed to come, and what that meant is I couldn't get off the plane. I wasn't allowed in that country, and it was because I was a convicted felon. And so I was real disappointed. I watched everybody get on the plane and go. And then just broken, I went back to Augusta, and it happened to be a Wednesday night, and I went to church. And a lady in the church asked me if I'd go see her neighbor's son in prison. No, I lied to her. I told her I'd pray about it because I wasn't going back to prison. And so anyway, she asked me again, and what I did is I said, I'll call the chaplain. If the chaplain says yes, I'll go see him. And so when I called the chaplain, I just told him my name, and that I go to church, that I've been incarcerated, and that a lady in the church asked me if I'd go see her neighbor's son. Now, I talked to a lot of chaplains. None of them would have ever said yes. But this chaplain said, can you be here at 1? Yeah, I didn't want that answer. So anyway, when I got there, I went through the first gate, and immediately when that door slammed, I knew that I was back in prison. And that's exactly how I felt. I said, I thought it was silly that here I am going to be walking into a chapel, and I'm going to be talking with somebody that I don't know and that doesn't know me. But here I am, you know, and so I go in the chapel, and he's back on the last pew there. And so what do you say? You know, it wasn't like I had anything planned. And so I just told him, I said, well, I'm Harley Lamoreaux. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. In a place called Brentwood. You know, my father was 74 years old when I was born. And so I just started telling the story. But along the way, all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit starts talking. And I'm saying stuff I never thought of, and they're all relating to God and prison and being saved and having eternal life and all that coming out. But also in the middle of it, what the Spirit said to me was, this is your mission field. See? I wanted to be a missionary. I never intended it to be for prisoners. You know? But God takes the worst that we do and makes it good for His kingdom. See? And so now things have really changed with the COVID-19. The prisons aren't open like they were. They're starting to open back up. But they're going to be in what's called phase 1. And so that's going to limit the inmates in a volunteer to 8 and 1. And so I had to change because I went in and doing concerts and then sharing my testimony. And there might be 100 in the chapel, there might be 15 in the chapel. You know, but that ain't going to happen for a while. And so I just said, okay, God, what do you want me to do? And so one of the times in the past, I was taking a course called Experiencing God. If you've ever taken that course, it will change your life. You know, and so I decided, well, that's what I need to do. I need to go in there and teach Experiencing God. And so I got 40 books donated. And so I'm setting up in 4 different prisons. The difference now, instead of where I would go maybe 5 or 6 prisons a month or whatever, I'll be actually going to at least the 4 every week. And that changes the whole perspective about what the cost and all is. But on top of that, the book, although they were donated, they're not going to go very far. And I'm not going to just start doing it and quit. I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. The books are $20 a piece. Inmates can't pay nothing. See? So there's, hopefully, I'll be able to do this in about, with at least 100 people. So I had to look at the expenses and what was going on, and this is what this is about. This is about raising the funds so that we can stay out there, and I try to eliminate as much hotel as possible. And we have our meals that we have to eat while we're out on the road, and Carolyn goes out with me some, and not all the time. I go way to the Panhandle for like 5 to 6 days at a time. That's just a little bit much for her, and I understand that. But gas is a better price at least right now. I don't know how long that'll last, but it's constant that we're spending. Personally, we're not taking money from it. We've just given it. And last year, at the end of the year, when we looked at everything that happened, on top of all that we raised, we spent $5,000 of our money. And we'll do it and keep doing it if that's what's necessary. So I just wanted to be able to share, because the reason I didn't want to do the song is I didn't want to take up any more time. We said it's 6 to 8.
I'll pay you to do that song.
I'm really gonna, I know that y'all want to hear it, but I'm just really gonna pass on. It's just a fast rock and roll song. And I can, okay, I'll tell you what. Mic up the song, and I'm just gonna play a little bit of it.
You're up there.
Here. We'll see how this works. I don't have my harp. I'll put it up. Is this working? I'm gonna switch mic. I'll go to the wireless, so it'll be loud. Okay.
Thank
I tell you what, we're so proud of her. Your decoration, that's Cindy. That's the stuff she does for our members, you know, and so nice to all of them.
Thank you, Harley. Everybody have a good time tonight? Thank you so much for your singing and everything you told us. A lot of us relate to your story. And I have people to ask me, why are you a part of this ministry? And I always thought that I don't know why I was a part of the ministry, but I just have a love for people. And I always say, please don't raise your hand, but what I'm going to ask you is like, how many of us have been in jail? Or how many of us know somebody in jail? And what I always like to ask is, who should have gone to jail, right? So, the husband definitely should have been in jail. So, back in there. But I do want to, I know we got to hurry, but I got to tell this one story. The first time I went to the state prison with Carolyn, we were there, and we went down there to Breakford. I think it's called Union County now. So these guys were 25 away. And I said, okay, well, I need to dress very, very conservative. So I had on a baggy pair of pants, I had boots on, I had a long shirt down here, I had a button up here, long sleeves, and I felt really good. And she said, Cindy, you look like one of the inmates. You got jeans on and a light blue shirt. I went, oh, mercy. So I picked some and I wore this bright, shirt, in case something happens, everybody has to run or flee. They can spot who's not supposed to be here. So I thought that was a really funny story. But anyway, I want to talk about giving. And this ministry means really a lot to me. And a lot of us can't go into these jails and do this. But we have a heart for people that are lost. And you have to remember, too, some of these guys want to get out. So where are they going to go from there? And we have to get them in that zone of they're hopeless right now and they're angry and they can come in. I have seen men bigger than my friend Bill here hugging this girl and crying and loving her and saying, please pray for me. And I was just, wow. And I've met Ronnie. I've met little Ronnie. He's a tough little dude back in the day. I've met him. And those guys absolutely love them too. And I just want to share one more quick thing about the experience we got. It's not like Harley can go down here to our church and order them a discount and bring them all in together. Jails don't work that way. That's just going to be mailed in. If they don't like all this literature, bring it in. You could tell them it could be in his books. So you have to remember that. So he has to pay regular costs for that. And another thing that we can do to give, of course, we always like cash, but you can also maybe do a monthly thing that would help them out also when they try to organize their bills and how they get everything together, scheduling wise and stuff. Excuse me. And also you can go to their website. You go to the gift goes on, and then you can go through PayPal if you'd like to do that. But I just love them, and I just want to tell you something very quickly. Also, we have something coming up. It's Amazon Prime Day deals are coming up. That's like next week, October 13th to 14th. And they are set up with them. And they get a percentage every time you buy something from Amazon. So you can go on their website and get hooked up. So everything you buy on Amazon, they get a small portion of it. But that adds up. That half penny adds up. And so if you're interested in that, please look us up. And we have 30 of these. And I got my sister and Tony. If you're interested in maybe getting one of these cards, can you just raise your hand real quick and just go around and pick that up while we get the get the gifts ready. I want to thank you guys for coming out so much. And how many people you guys, this is the first time you've been here? First time you've been here. I want to thank you guys so much. This is the fourth year we've done this, and we're really excited, and we love you, and we're going to get the prizes ready, right?
And I'm going to give my decorator here. a gift that we picked up for. Go ahead and open it. Yeah, I put you on the spot. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, well, I tell you what, when I went there and I talked with them, I said, do you know Joe and Cindy? And everyone did. It just so happened that she had to be a bartender, but that isn't how they know her. I'm just letting you know. So, but it was so neat that, and on top of it, then they donated another gift card for $30. Yeah, so, no, that's for 50. So y'all enjoy it, because you don't know how much they give. I mean, this doesn't just happen in 10 minutes, you know, and all that getting and all this together is just so wonderful. Well, y'all are so wonderful. I'm so glad that y'all came out, and we're getting ready to do the door prizes. Yeah, that's what we're getting ready to do. And we got some nice things. There's some nice gifts. And, okay, this is for the dog package. And, Sean Henry. How about that, Sean? One of the times I stepped out back, and that got the cutest dog. You know? Okay, this is for the wreath. Elaine Harden. That's you. Okay? So you can pick that up on the way out. That's why everybody knows what they're getting, so we don't have to worry about taking the table. Okay, this is for the painting. Well, Elaine, did you get your lottery ticket? Okay, good enough, because you got to paint now. Okay. Well, keeping it in the family, Sandy Lamoreaux, that's the coffee cup and the thermos, you know, and they're real nice ones. Okay, this is the thing you freeze. Okay, it's real nice. It's a cooler, but you just stick the cooler in the refrigerator and freeze it. And that's your ice. And that goes to Richard Moy. How about that? So that's good now.
If you guys look on your packages, and where the heart is, it's going to say holy. But it's with a white flower that says holy. If you raise your hand, you got a little gift coming to you. It's the white flower and it says holy. So just raise your hand. There's three of those. So if you don't have one, you might want to look around next to a table. Your little hand up, please.
Yeah. Did you get one? All right. So, as they're holding their hand up, I'm taking the cards. Okay. See, we tricked him. We changed the color of his flower. So, but I tell you what, this has been an incredible evening. And, okay, good. And now she got one. Yeah. Yeah, they'll be over there and bring it to you. All right, that's how you break it. But God is so good, and I'm so thankful that y'all are part of the church family. And we have some other guests here, and it's so neat because it's all about friends coming out and supporting things. And you know, every time we go into prison, that you're a big part of that. So there's something else I need to draw. All right. Look at that. Matt got him one. All right, Matt. Okay, you need to get your tickets out now. This is going to be for the tickets. Yeah, so I don't have names. Well, Elaine Lamason. Oh, did I say it right too? Lamason? Lamason. Oh. So, okay. This is Nan Moyers. Okay, this is a well-known Jesse Rowe. All right, how about that? Okay, this here's yeah. So this is for Kevin Oliver. All right. And that's $50 at Joseph's. Yeah, how about that? You like that? Yeah. Okay. This one is Chrissy Stevens. Okay. And this is for lily pads, and you have to call and get a reservation for that. You know. Okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you guys. If you feel led to give, we have these boxes up here. If y'all just want to come up immediately and give Harley and Carolyn a hug, just slip whatever you want in there on both sides, and we appreciate you coming.
All right. And, oh yeah, thanks so much, Brian. Kenny has some CDs here. He said that there's not a price on them, that you can just donate whatever you have, and he's unlimited though. Okay, and I get the donation, so it looks like he has, what, 9 or? $10 or $12 of them, so just make sure if that's what you want, get that, you get him to get taken home with you, I tell you. Now, wasn't he great? Yeah, this is the first time I'm going to actually meet him, so I've been blessed. We actually are going to be going in prisons together, and I'm going to get to sit back and watch him do his thing. And it's going to be so nice. And when I go in the prisons, I end up playing with the praise bands. And anyway, so, but I just wanted to thank y'all again for coming. And this is the program. And appreciate y'all coming so much. And you know what it's all about. So thank you. God bless.
One more thing, we have leftovers, so if anybody wants to take a plate home or dessert, please feel free to do that. And if you left, we have to pack up, okay? Thank you.
Jesus loves me. I know. For the Bible tells